Hello, this is Noreen Crone-Findlay from Crone-Findlay.com and tottytalkscrafts.com. Crone-Findlay.com is my website where all my designs and patterns and ebooks and other wonderful things that I've created are available for purchase. And tottytalkscrafts.com is my blog where all of my links and support material for the various video tutorials is all to be found. And I will have links there. You can go and find all manner of wonderfulness there. Now, this particular video, it's a long one. It's the finishing techniques for the pouches, and there are going to be links that will take you other places for some of the specific finishing techniques that you will be invited to investigate if you're interested. Because it's such a long video, I have made it in a whole bunch of little separate segments, bite-sized pieces, and each of the subchapters has this blue flower with a handwritten subtitle that goes beside the blue flower. So you'll be able to move the little button, the timer button, along the bottom of the video, and that way you can go back and forth and check into exactly which little chunk of information you want to check out again. So I'm hoping that this has been a really useful way to present this material, and I hope that you've been having a wonderful time weaving your pouches. And now let's get them finished. For the steaming, blocking, pressing process, you need to have a damp pressing cloth. If you are going to need to pin it out and block it, I use quilting pins that are big stainless steel pins. They work well. A tape measure, and I like to use a set square. Now, I'm just going to check and see. I can see that I have pulled in a little bit up at this edge. I'm not too concerned about that. I'll see how much. It should be 3 inches. And, well, gosh, it is 3 inches. Even so, I still need to press. I am going to show you, even though I'm probably not going to need to block this piece, I am going to show you what I would do if I had to block it. Now, I'm going to turn it over with the wrong side up, and I forgot to plug in the iron, so I'm going to start all over again. Plug in the iron. Boy, never managed to get it in all in one go. Okay, I just laid this finished pouch onto the cartoon to show you how much your piece does look like your colored cartoon, but also to how you can see there are variations. That I did the stripes were more of an indication than an exact representation of the stripes on the cartoon. And I decided to finish the top edge with a white band rather than black. But other than that, you know, they're pretty close. Now, just move the cartoon out of the way. You start your finishing by tying off. We'll snip this end so we can tie it off. And you want to tie your ends fairly closely to another end that's quite close. You just want to make sure that you've got square knots locking all of your stray ends in place. And then you snip them off. That was a bit short. Snip them off with about 1 inch showing. So I'm not going to bore you by tying off every single end, but just pretend that I have. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to steam and press the pouch. So I'm going to take, my iron has a really nice, a nice setting that allows me to spritz and spray it. Now I'm going to put it back to steam, and I'm not going to touch it. I don't have a pressing cloth on there, but I'm just going to give it some blasts of steam. I've got a set square here, and I have measured, and my finished piece is a bit longer than 10 inches. It's about 10 3/8. That's good. I'd rather have it a bit long than a bit too short. And it's bang on 3 inches, so perfect. I'm just going to check against the set square and see how we are for square. Oh, beautiful. Okay, that's great. So I don't really need to block it, but I do want to steam it. So I'm going to take my damp pressing cloth. Now I've turned it over, so I'm working on the wrong side. I don't do this on the right side of the piece. I also do this before I do the chain stitch embroidery, because I do use synthetic yarns, the metallic yarns, for the chain stitch embroidery on this. This bag is woven with the, I'm going to keep blasting steam into it, with Bonbons by Lion Brand. Lovely cotton, lightweight cotton, and it weaves up like a dream. And you can see that I used 2 strands. There, I'll hold it up closer. You can see I've used, ouch, that's hot, 2 strands of the Bonbons held together. Now that's interesting. As soon as I steamed it, it pulled aside. So I want to just work it with my fingers, so it's now flat again and square. Okay. Now, if I was going to block it, I would be checking again to make sure that I am square. Yep, I'm square. Good. And then I would use the quilting pins, and I would pin it to a padded surface like my ironing board, and I would place pins. These are the great big quilting pins, and you can use T-pins as well, and I would pin it in place, steam it again, and allow it to dry. So that's the steaming and pressing and blocking of your unfinished pouch. Next, I'll show you where we go next, which is to work an overcast seam on the open end. This is going to be the open end. This is going to be it'll be folded like this. And I'll show you how we get to the point too. That's coming up next. This is the inside front edge of the pouch. It's going to be folded like this. So this edge is going to be the edge that we're constantly reaching past to get into the pouch. And as you can see, we have the loops of warp strand. And I like to cover them. And so what I'm going to do first of all, because I have my 2 strands of warp yarn that I had the ends tied to the in knots to hold it onto the loom. Whoops, I'm going to need to redo that. I want to weave them into the body of the bag. the pouch. Now I have a great big long needle. It's an upholstery needle actually that I bought from the local fabric store. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread it down into the body of the weaving, and then I will weave in. Of course it's not wanting to go in. That always happens. You know, you turn on the video camera and things that you think should go well will suddenly go not well. Okay, there. So I pushed it down. I'm going to fold my end over, push it through, and that's the easiest way to thread the needle. And I'll pull it in. I'm not going to cut it off. I will probably weave it in a bit more, but I don't want to be taking up video time messing about with it. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Weave this end in, fold it over, in it goes, and down it goes quite nicely and politely. I think I'll do the same thing. Sometimes what I do is I just take the eye end of the needle and push it up. And I'll take the ends of the black yarn in. There we go. Those are woven in. And now we're going to start working the overcast stitching across this upper edge. With the wrong side of the pouch facing you, take your needle, and you've threaded your yarn, the same number of strands as you wove the pouch with. Take it up the channel of the first row, and I'm not sure quite why I'm having a bit of a wrestling match here, but indeed I am. Something's trying to volunteer to come through. We have a cling on. Don't cling on. Okay, that little guy's going to have to either be discovered and pulled down or ignored and forgotten. Okay, so to do the overcast stitching, I want to cover up. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to thump the camera. I want to cover up my warp strands at the top. So what I do is I just do 2 or 3 stitches over each warp band here. And that, see, covers it up. And it depends on how thick your yarn is. You might not need to do 3 stitches, 2 might be enough, but that's how you do the overcast stitching to clean finish the edge of the upper edge of the pouch. Well, it's the upper inside edge. I'll show you how we make the point after the chain stitch embroidery is done. So I'm just going to keep stitching across until I'm done, and there you go. You know, if you wanted to, you could use a different color to cover your warp ends, but I just find, oops, that's is that showing a little bit? Might do a 3rd stitch just to make sure that I'm covering it completely. Yeah, and check and see from the front. Your lining is going to come up to the back here, so if it shows a little bit down here, then that's not really the issue. You want it to look the best from the outside. All right, I'm going to just finish stitching this up, and then I'll show you how it looks when it's done. Okay, I've worked across with the wrong side up, and I'm just checking the right side. You know, I'm thinking that I'm not thrilled because I'm still seeing, you see the little white flex there. So I'm going to take and stitch back across just one more pass, just to make sure that I'm not seeing the little white stitches at the warp ends. And so give myself an extra stitch across in each one, just to make sure that I'm completely covering those warp strands. Yeah, there, that's better. Just a bit more coverage is good. When I get across to the other side, I'm not going to cut my yarn off, because I'll be using that to stitch the sides of the pouch together. And there we go. Oh, I'm not sure if I mentioned to you when you were first taking your the tail ends of the warp in, the ones that were tied onto the S-hooks, untie any knots in them before you thread them down. There, that's perfect. Yeah, because you definitely don't want to have the knots still there. Good enough. There we go. Next, we're going to start doing the embroidered chain stitch. Now, you might like having the pouch without any embroidery on it, but I like the way the embroidery looks, and so I will be showing you how to do that. So now we're going to make the point, and I think I'll use a slightly larger needle. The point is really easy to do. You have the leftover yarn that you finished weaving the last part of the top edge, and you fold it together with the wrong sides together and simply stitch through 2 of the loops of warp, once, twice, then through the next 2 sets, once, twice, third set, where are you, third set? There's the third one. It's hard to see the white on white. Here, I'll come up close. Hopefully that's not blurry, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing as I am stitching through the ends of the warp loops. There we go. Right up to the fold. Give it a tug. There we go, that's done. And now you simply fold it down, and there you go. There's your point. Isn't that easy? We'll use this for stitching the edging on. And that's how we get to the point, which will be the front of the pouch. When you're working your chain stitch, you're going to work a chain stitch around each of the collar shapes to make them really pop and lift off the page, as it were. Now you can see with this pouch, I just stuck to working the edges. I didn't add anything into the spaces, but you certainly can. You can see with this flower I added some more definition around the petals and a little vein into each of the petals. And at the end, at the point, I really got adventurous. I worked lots of extra lines to add more definition and color. And I have to admit, I quite like the extra embroidery. So I'm going to show you how to do the chain stitch. It's just, oh, it's wonderfully quick and easy. And the thing is that it's I call it the drawing stitch because you can draw with it so easily. Take your needle through the pouch and bring it up, leaving about 1.5 inches on the wrong side. You'll tie that off after. Now go through around a warp strand and notice that you're coming back out over top of the your embroidery thread. So pull that up and now move to the next stitch. Is started by inserting the tip of your needle through the last stitch that you made. Stitch through your fabric, and again your yarn is going around your needle comes out over top, and pull up, and you leave behind you a wonderful trail of gorgeous little chain stitches. Now you can use 2 strands if you want to have a heavier, more raised chain stitch. In this case, I'm just using 1 strand. This is from the Lion brand bonbons, and the glitter makes it show up quite nicely. Okay, I'm just going to finish working around my outside edges, and then when I come back to get more loopy around the edges here, I will show you how I do that, how I just doodle and draw with the chain stitch. I'll be back soon. So you can see that I've worked the chain stitch around each of the color blocks, and I actually went around the orange one twice. Now I've also worked some lines into the medallion, center medallion on the back, the flower, whatever you want, and I also stitched a filigree charm or embellishment on at the center too. I thought it worked well there. And now at the top, I've gone up the center of this blue section, and I've worked a few extra lines, and I've circled around the whole thing. And I like these lines that circle out around this flower at the top. So I want to do that as well here. And this will give me a chance to show you how to make curving lines and to restart when you need to change direction. So you come up inside the loop of it's going to come like this. So you come up inside the loop of the stitch and go back down into the fabric by stitching back through, and ease it around in a circle. Oops, take that around the needle. I need to move my yarn in there. And when you change directions at a corner, make your stitch as you normally do, come out, but before you make your next stitch, go directly back down into the fabric and take the needle through and bring it out a little bit over, just so that you get a completely closed stitch and can start your next stitch. Oh, I'm sorry, bumped the tripod. And then when you start your next stitch, it'll be perfectly shaped as well. If you go without closing one and change direction, you can end up with an open stitch that doesn't look all that great. So it's good to close your stitch before you start your next direction. So we'll do another circle around. And so what I'm going to do is just work my way around doing kind of petals around the flower in chain stitches. So how about I just go off and finish that and come back. See, I'm going to close this stitch. Oh, another thing too is that working the chain stitch can make your thread get overspun. So drop it and let your needle spin, and that will take the extra stitching, the extra twists out. Okay, so I am going to go and finish working these loops around the outside edge, and then I'll be right back to you. So now the embroidery is finished. Lift it close. Hopefully that doesn't take it into blurro vision too much. There we go. Okay. So you can see that the chain stitching really adds definition to it. And the next stage is to add the lining. So I'm going to get that ready, and I'll show you how to do that next. I really like to upcycle old t-shirts and use them as lining. You can see I have cut the sleeve off of a formerly fine t-shirt, which has done noble service, and now it's going to do even more noble service, even though it is technically one dead t-shirt. So what I'm going to do is I will place the pouch onto the t-shirt fabric, and I'm going to cut it out about, I'll give myself about 1/2 inch all the way around. And I'm hopefully, yeah, right, I've got the wrong sides together. I was just checking to make sure that I did indeed have the wrong sides together. There we go. Okay. And I actually don't throw away the scraps that are the offcuts until I've used them to clean the floor or something, because I figure, why waste anything? So I'm going to turn this way so that's better, shows up better. Okay, now what I'm going to do is carefully I'm going to turn the corners in at a 45-degree angle, and then I will fold that 1/2 inch seam allowance in and pin that to the pouch. Of course, up here at the top point, I'll have to fold that in 45 degrees and fold in, whoops, we're having a Chihuahua wrestling match out in the studio. And I'm going to fold in. Hopefully my husband will rake up the crankiness out there. Okay, so I'm just going to keep folding and pinning pin, fold, fold. And then I'll get back to you when it's all pinned together and show you a little bit more. Okay, there, it's all pinned. Now, pins are your friend. So whenever you're building a garment or a bag or a pouch, and you're going to be putting two pieces together, the more pins you add, the better it is, because that the pins are going to help you shape the garment or the bag, and they're going to just make sure that the lining is placed perfectly. So use a lot of pins, many pins. So we're ready to stitch. Yay, pins. When you're stitching your lining to your bag, you want the stitching to be as invisible as is humanly possible. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just going to remove the pin at the corner here, and I'm going to come in. I've threaded my needle, probably can't see it. I've threaded my needle and knotted it. And so I'm going to remove the pin here. I'm going to come in diagonally on the wrong side so that I will be able to bury the knot on the wrong side. Okay, good. Oops. Oh, you know, I should also point something else out to you. Because I'm using 2 strands of the bonbon yarn, I have the luxury of being able to take one of the strands between the lining and the pouch to come out the other side for when I want to stitch the sides of the bag up. So that's kind of handy. Can't do that if you're just using a single strand, of course. All right, so we have stitched into our bag and it's coming out at the very corner. So now what we're going to do is take a tiny stitch through the lining at the very corner of the lining. And I need to get the strand of weaving cotton is volunteering to participate, and I'm like, no, go away. So, all right, so I have taken a tiny stitch in the corner of the lining. Now I'm going to, which is securing the lining to the bag. Now I'm going to take my needle in a few stitches and bring it out. And as we move along, we're going to remove the pins as we go. So now what I'll do is I'm going to go into the lining and pick up a couple of millimeters, I guess that's about 1/8 of an inch in the lining and pull my strands through. And now I go back into the pouch, remove the next pin, stitch up a couple of rows of weaving, pull through, pinch, pull up, and you can see, hopefully, that the stitching completely vanishes. So you go back, in, up a couple of millimeters, 1/8 of an inch or so, and pull it through, tighten, straight across into the pouch, and up. And encourage that little knot to kindly get out of there. I'm using quite a heavy duty thread. It's a quilting cotton, and it's quite thick and really sturdy. You can use regular sewing machine thread if you want. I just am partial to using the really firm stuff, but if you want to match the color of your lining, the thread to that, then use a sewing machine thread. I'm just using this because I like it and because it does match. So that's the secret to stitching an invisible lining to your pouch. And I'm going to carry on and finish stitching this up. And then I will come back and show you how absolutely gorgeous it looks. I have the side seams pinned. I've folded up the lower edge, and I'm checking to see, yep, that looks good to me. And so I've pinned the side edges together. As you know, I said before, I pin everything. Now I want to get this needle and thread out of the way. This is from the sewing the lining in, and I'll be using that to stitch the edging to the side edges, and also to stitch the snap fastener on. So what I'm doing is I'm just making a figure 8 with the thread to keep that thread out of the way. Otherwise it's going to be volunteering to keep me company while I'm stitching the side seams, and I don't want that. And I forgot to bring my needle. Oops. Okay, quick edit. Gonna run and get the needle. So here is the pouch with the sides already stitched up, or completely stitched. You notice that when your pouch is open and closed, that usually your pouch front will go all the way up to the fold, but because this pouch is designed for business cards and for cell phones, here, I'll grab mine and just stick it in. I wanted to be able to see the screen, and so that's why I have it with this much of a gap. If you want to have more weaving, go ahead. You're most welcome to adapt your pouch to whatever size you want. Anyhow, there we go. So, sides stitched together, ready to add some more goodies. Okay, so fold the thread over the eye of the needle, push the fold through the needle, and there we go. So I'm going to pick up a bit of the corner. I just want to make sure that I am fairly close. I'm just going to move this up a little bit there, because I'd like this corner to be meeting at this point of the back of the pouch on both sides, and it is already doing that. So we're going to use exactly the same technique for stitching the bag sides as stitching the lining. I'm going to go over the same spot a couple of times to start, because I like to have the top edge really well anchored so that the wear and tear on the pouch doesn't pull the front away from the back. I like things to be really solid and secure right from the get-go, so you don't have to do a lot of repair work. Okay, so pick some up from the back, pull out the pin, and stitch together. You're going to nudge the lining down into the space between the front and the back. You don't want the lining bulging out as much as is possible. It's going to be covered by edging, but even so, it's still preferable. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to bump it. It is preferable to have it pushed down into place. Okay, I think you've got that, that we're stepping along from side to side and pulling up firmly. Using the bonbon, this is what this pouch is woven with cotton. It's very easy to use it to do the stitching together. With wool, I would use a cotton or linen thread to do the stitching together at the sides, because your wool can pull apart quite easily if it's not a particularly strong spin. If it's a soft and lofty, it's not going to work well as stitching. Okay, so we're just rounding in on that corner, and I'm going to finish. You can see that the stripes are offset, and that's just the way it goes. Again, that won't be too noticeable once the edging is stitched on. When we reach the corner, I'm going to do the same thing that I did at the top corner. I'm going to stitch in place a couple of times because I want to have that lower corner really well secured too. Now, I decided for this particular pouch that I would like to embellish the side edges and the tip of the pouch with some beads. So when we get there to that point, I will show you how we do it. Just stitching really well so that we have a firm join. And there we have it. I'll take the end inside and bring it out, and we'll trim this end off right close with the tips of my scissors pointing up, because you don't want to be snipping towards, because that can be just an invitation to disaster. And that ends up being whaley, and I don't want that for you. Oh, okay, I'm going to stitch the second side and get back to you. Okay, so ready to sew on the snap fasteners. I use 15mm or 5/8 inch size snaps. You can get them in silver or black. I don't know if you can get them in other colors. I buy them at my local fabric store, but I'm willing to bet you could get them in craft stores too. So the female half, which is the insy portion usually goes on the center of the upper inside of the pouch. So I'm going to take my thread, where's my thimble, and I will sneak my, okay, I'm going to put this down, I will just sneak my thread along here. Oh my word, that's stiff there. Okay, I will just stitch-a-rooney along to the middle, and I'm just going to sew that little darling on right there through the holes. There you have it. And I'm not sure if you need me to show sewing on the top one or not, but oh, why not? I'll just finish sewing on this one and I'll start the top one then too. Okay, so I have the insy part of the snap done, and now it's time to sew on the outsy part of the snap. So you take your thread in, you don't tie a knot in your end, and you come out, oh, I left my thimble in the other part of the studio. Okay, so you come out and just make sure that the end is buried inside. Now, stitch in place, tiny little stitches 3 times to lock your ends. And then take your needle through the snap, the top bit, and stitch away until you have your snap attached. Go through all 4 holes several times. You want it. And also stitch through the lining to the bag itself, so that, not all the way through so you've got, you know, strands coming out on the other side, but stitch so that you are securing it to the bag, to the pouch itself, and not just the lining, because it'll be a lot more secure if you are stitched to the lining. I mean, to the... Oh, it's been a long day. Okay. You'll be much more... Your snap will be more secure if it is stitched to the weaving and not just the lining. Okay, through and to the 4th part. So the reason why I am shooting the entire part of stitching this on, well, that's twice. Let's see if we can go for broke here. Okay, the reason why I wanted to show you the entire process of stitching it on, which is, I'm sure, absolutely thrilling in video history, is because I want to show you about the finishing off. So I have stitched now once, twice at the base of the last set of stitches. Then I'm going to take it inside the bag, in between the lining and the bag, and I am going to snip the end, and we now have the snap closure is on. Next, time for the last bit of embellishment. I decided that I wanted to have the red and purple 2-color spool knitted cord as the edging for this pouch. I also decided I wanted to use some hand made bone beads at the lower edge of the pouch. Now, with most of the pouches, you can see I've just used an edging cord and stitched that on. But my daughter-in-law said to me, "Mom, why don't you put a clip on the side and that way people can attach it to their blue jeans or into a loop in their bag. And it also struck me that you could make a wrist strap and attach it to a wrist strap too. So I added the clip to this one, and I'm going to add the clip to all the rest of them as I weave the next set. So what I did here was I threaded, first of all, I started by threading this black bead at the center on, and then I threaded the swivel clip on, and I then threaded on each of their handmade bone beads at each end, and I have stitched them on using the yarn from the cord, and then taken see how I tied a knot? And the ends, of course, have to go inside between the, either woven into the weaving or inside between the weaving and the lining. So I'm just going to do that and pull out the needle and trim off the ends. Always, when you're snipping threads, always have your points up and away from your fabric so that you don't inadvertently slice into your fabric, because whaley, that would be cause for embellishment, because you would have to cover it up somehow. So, but first you'd weep. This is the voice of experience, because guess who has had to do that? Yeah, me. Okay, so just get that second little darling woven in, and I should have gone and got my thimble. Okay, and again, points up, then wobble it a bit so that the ends vanish, never to be seen again, we hope. Okay, now this way we know that we've got the ends securely attached, which is good. And you can see I placed a pin with a colored marker, different glass bead on it, to show me where I want my swivel clip to be. And I am going to now start pinning. And because that point is pretty thick, I'm just going to stab those pins, hopefully not into me, although, people always say you're not done until you've bled upon your piece. Ew, gross. Okay, and push that little darling in. Yeah, ow. Okay, I think I'll put another pin in. I always think, why just use one pin when 6 will do? When I was pinning this on before, about 10 takes back, I was thinking, ooh, beads would look really pretty on there. It's funny how you don't think of something and then you'll have a little divine accident like that and think, oh gosh, that would be pretty. So I think I might go have a rummage in my bead drawer and put some beads on while I'm stitching the cord to the pouch. Okay, so anyhow, you don't need to see me pinning the rest of these. You've got it. You can now go and pin your cords to your gorgeous pouch. There we go. Woohoo! All right, I'm going to finish pinning this, and I'm going to go find some beads, and then I'll be back and do the stitch. Okay, so I have my cord all pinned on, and when I was rummaging about looking for beads, I thought, oh, duh, to use number 8 beads that are available from Mirrix. It's a Mirrix weave along, so duh. All right, so, I have to show you this gorgeous bowl. My husband turned this on the lathe for me in 1992. I did the burning of the Celtic interlaces and things, but I love this beading bowl. He actually made me several, and I use them for all kinds of things. Okay, so we're going to get started here. So I have threaded my needle, check to make sure that it goes through the size 8 beads, and it does, yay. I wanted to use a slightly heavier duty needle than a regular beading needle. So I'm going to take the needle in at the very corner here. I'm not tying a knot in the thread. I am just going to pull it through, leave a little bit of a tail there, and then I'm going to stitch in place 3 times. Very small, tiny little stitches. And I'm going to pick up some beads. A 1, a 2, a 3. Take another stitch here. Undo the knot, stitching through here. And it promptly tangled on me, and it's like, don't do that. Okay, so smarten up your little beads. There we go. 3 across, and then up through the big bone bead, finding the hole. Okay, good, it's through. All right, and now I'm going to go through the cord and down into the bag, pouch, and just at the very top of the bone bead, I'm going to, you could use glass beads or metal beads or wooden ones, whatever suits your fancy. I'm going to take a couple of stitches again just to anchor that big bone, big beautiful bone bead, because I want it to be firmly held in place and not going off on little adventures on its own. Okay, that's good. So that pin can vanish. And now I'm taking a couple of stitches through the, oh, sorry, I hooked the easel. It's really hard to, sometimes to keep the bag in the right place, keep my hot little hands away from the video camera. So I need to decide how frequently am I going to put a bead. Well, I don't know, maybe every 1/4 inch or so. So I've picked up a bead, slide it down to the cord, and I'm going to go back through the cord and ugh, that tangled. Yuck. Icky yucky. Okay. I'll just keep having little conversations with the beads, saying, oh, please cooperate, little darlings. Pull, pull, pull. There we go. That guy's cooperating there. So, you know, I think every 1/4 of an inch would be about right. So I think every time I come up through the cord, I'm going to add a bead. So now my thread is coming through the cord, so what I want to do is just nudge that out of the way and stitch about a 1/4 of an inch And hold the thread so that it doesn't tangle. So I've gone through the pouch, traveling up towards the point, and now I'm going to come back up through the cord, whoops, from red side to red side here, because I want the red being, is the red, oh no, the red's this way. I got that twisted a bit. I wondered why it was being uncooperative. That's okay, so this guy's a little bit off. You know, I could really stop banging into the easel, one would hope. Okay, I could take that bead out, but I'm not going to. So now back through the lavender side of the cord, and there we go. Back, pick up another, right, you know, right where you want the cord to be sitting is where you're going to be stitching. So you're kind of pushing your cord over a little bit just to make sure that you're right at the edge there, at the edge of your seam. I think if I moved that pin, that's a bit easier. Okay, now, and I take another 1/4 of an inch. Let's see, is that about 1/4 of an inch? Yes. About 1/2 centimeter. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving up the cord 1/4 inch at a time, picking up a bead at each stitch so that you see how that's, there they are, they show up there. So that there's a bead every 1/4 inch along the, now you could use, along the cord, you could use multiple colors of beads if you prefer. I think I'm going to stick with the iridescent blue. Okay, I'm going to keep on stitching, and when I'm done, I will, oh, you know, I think I'll stitch up to here and then come back and talk to you at that point. So I have stitched the cord along the one side of the pouch. Check both sides as you stitch to make sure that you are completely covering the join line along the side there. You want to make sure that it's covered. And I've added beads, which I really like. Now, where did my thread go? Here it is. I was thinking about how I want to stitch this center bead on, and I decided rather than just doing one bead at the big bead, I would add three. I think 3's better. 3 beads. So I have threaded 3 beads on, and I will stitch through the cord. Okay, straight down in, and I'm going to go into the point of the pouch. I'm going to come up through and stitch, pick up 3 more beads, and go through the cord, just wanted to add a bit more emphasis to the main bead here, and so that does it by adding 3 beads on either side rather than 1. So I have stitched through the cord here. I'll remove that pin, and stitch into the pouch, come out about 1/4 of an inch over, pull up hard on that, stitch back up through the cord, pick up a bead, and go back down through the cord. Oops, bit of a knot there. There we go. And I'm going to carry on stitching the second half of the cord right back down to the other corner. And when I come back, the pouch will be done. Wee-ha! Well, there we have it. The pouch is done. I stitched several times over at the base of the swivel hook so that it's on there really sturdily, and stitched more beads on at the second side. So that's it. One more pouch, and I hope that you are now happily going, "Ooh, I just finished a gorgeous pouch too." So post pictures of your pouches, and happy weaving, and enjoy the joys of sumac. There we go. Let me just turn it over just so you can admire the back. See? Pretty. Go gently, weave happily, be well, do good work.